We are talking college football playoff expansion again, but what does it mean for the regular season? How about the calendar? I mean, how many more games are we actually adding? We try to tackle that topic. Plus, our guys have been tasked with finding the next Cam Ward. There were two transfer stories for the quarterback, but both considered successful, so who's next up? And who should be on the cover of EA College Football 26? That and more ultimate burning questions as the ultimate college football show starts right now. Hello and welcome into the ultimate college football show. He is former Power Conference General Manager Smoke Dixon. I am just Emily Proud, but we have a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and start with our opening kick. Texas and USC are the latest schools to abandon spring games. We talked on the show last week about a proposal to move to an NFL OTA type of model. So Smoke, what's your take as we see more coaches opt to just get rid of the spring game altogether?
Welcome to modern day football. I mean, the only reason why I believe most coaches had spring games or the way that they use spring in itself is because that's what's always been done, and people are just doing it just the way that everybody did 30 years ago. But college football's changed. There's a chance that you might have to play 16 games in a season. That's an NFL season, and I've never been in an NFL team where there was tackled down to the ground, slug out football in March.
So who do we have to blame for this change?
Coaches.
Okay.
Blame the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Because the coaches wanted players to get paid. They wanted transfer portal. And the ones that are going to suffer are the fans. Because you don't have an opportunity to go out and see the team without paying an entrance fee for this.
What's the argument for a spring game? Why did we ever do these?
Well, coaches will say, well, we have to get our team ready, and we want to see our guys play in a live format, and that's all you're getting from it. Other than that, you can just go through simulated practices in spring and get what you want.
Yeah, fans will definitely be missing out on that game, but it hasn't really been a game for a long time, so this is definitely the first of many moves to no more spring games.
Two-hand tag, quick whistle.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we got something else we want to talk about here. No new news necessarily, but Deion Sanders has not made in-home or off-campus visits on the recruiting trail since taking over the Buffs in December of 2022. Again, this is not new, but is this a big deal or no big deal?
No. This only works for a guy like Deion Sanders. I mean, when Prime steps up into any school, he can literally shut this down. He's a social icon. Like a rock star stepping into your school. So you might not have school for about a week when time comes here and nothing gets done.
Yeah. So they just might as well not even bother with that. I love, too, there's a great story up on 247sports.com where our recruiting analysts, our national guys, actually went through and gave their opinion on it. And one of them, Brandon Huffman, said this. He made the case that recruiting is no longer managed by the head coach or even the position coach, but the general manager, the collective, and the players' people, I guess we'll call them. So right. What does this say about the importance of a head coach in recruiting?
I mean, you're still important, but you're not the deal closer. You're not the one going in the last second saying, you know what, this is the reason why we're getting this recruit. It's coming to be play for play. Mm-hmm. You're paying guys now. So really, it's working out that business deal before you come on your official visit in order to get this done. So you can stay at home, do whatever you want to do, but that player still has to come and see you. Now, Emily, back in my day, and I'm about to celebrate my 25th year of being college football, it wouldn't work because the coach coming down and sitting in my living room and sitting around my dining room with my family and breaking bread, that was important because we weren't dealing with the business aspect of college football. But nowadays it's business. So business at hand, you shake hand, go on with the deal, sign a piece of paper. Coach, I'll see you when I get there.
Mm-hmm. So it's obviously you laid out that it's different back when you were going through the recruiting process. You would not have signed unless you had the head coach come to you. But now that we're looking into the future, I mean, what if this was your son? Would you be okay with him potentially signing if the head coach didn't come to your living room?
I wouldn't, just because I'm from the old school. and I'm from where you have to have a relationship with the player. But some of these parents don't come from the old school method. Mm-hmm. They're modern, and they understand the lack of having that relationship because most of them won't end up at that school when they graduate. Most of those guys will hit the portal anyway.
Yeah.
But for us, it was a 4-year to 40-year deal that you're signing on with said coach.
Yeah, we'll talk about that actually later on in the show when we discuss quarterbacks on the move, is how many of them have followed a coach and just the importance of that coach and player relationship. But we are rolling here on the Ultimate College Football Show. A good time to remind you to hit that like button. Make sure that you are subscribed and submit some questions if you've got them, including your ultimate burning questions. We will answer them live at the end of the show. Maybe sprinkle some in throughout the show. Either way, you should submit those questions. I know you have them. All right, it is time now for College Football Confidential with our friend John Talty. We got some news here. 10 FBS commissioners and the Notre Dame athletic director will be meeting tomorrow. The meeting of the minds. John, what are they talking about?
A lot of things, a lot of kind of minutia of the playoff, ticket prices, things like that. But I think the thing that we all care about the most is related to the future format of the college football playoff. And the areas, I think, in particular that fans are going to care about. The total number of teams. This past year was 12. If you love the 12-team format, I wouldn't get too used to it because it's probably going to change in the future. Not so distant future. And then the other piece is just the seeding. So this past year became somewhat controversial that wasn't ranked based on the final rankings. So you had teams like Arizona State and Boise State get byes despite being ranked lower than some of these other teams. That's something that you kind of knew after 1 year, probably not going to last forever. There's still probably pretty good likelihood it's going to continue for another year just because it'll take unanimous vote in Dallas to change it. But down the line, that's likely to change. It's going to be probably more ranked, just based on the final rankings. So a lot changing with the playoff format. We have these meetings. What actually comes of it? Probably more talk than actual final decisions, but another step in terms of more things changing with the playoff format.
Yeah, we could see minor changes, like you said, with the seeding for 2025. But I think what's been causing most of the chaos in this early offseason is talking about beyond that in 2026, specifically when it comes to those automatic qualifiers for potentially for the SEC and for the Big Ten. That's causing quite the stir. We'll start with you, John. What's your take on the future of the playoff as it pertains to the automatic qualifiers?
Yeah, I think the fan reaction you get has been largely unpopular, I think, to the automatic qualifier. I think there's concern from people that this is going to exclude. I think one of the big overall concerns with college football for a while now has been that it's dominated by certain pockets of the country. And the fear, I think, has been that you might lose big swaths of the country because of just certain conferences, certain geographically located schools doing best. And I think that's actually why the playoff expanded from 4 to 12, was that the West Coast had been left out in large part in the playoff because of just the dominance of Alabama and Clemson and Georgia and programs like that. So I think the fear is that it's going to be more dominated by the SEC, Big Ten. Certain programs are going to be left out. That's the fear. Now, I've heard the flip side of it, why they want to do it. We know the SEC and Big Ten have dominated in many ways. And so them having the most in the playoff makes sense in that regard. But I just think it's another area that seems to have upset fans. And I think one of the big risks of it is just you're going to turn off fans and lose people who might have otherwise been very invested in your product.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to lose many fans anyway, because the SEC and Big Ten, they ran college football for the last 15 to 20 years. Every now and then you'll have a one-off where you have a Boise pop up and show up in a game and play decent. But for the most part, all you're doing is just doing the same thing all over again. But you're just creating an opportunity now, create one or two more opportunities for the SEC or the Big Ten to represent themselves. Mm-hmm. The only thing I would say is if you've seen a team play already in a calendar year, and say if they mess around and play in the conference championship again, who wants to see a third matchup in the college football playoff series? That's the only way I would say, enough's enough, because we're seeing the same matchup over and over again. And I don't think you can create that or eliminate that. It might just happen. And when that does happen, how much is a fan going to sit in and just tune into that game?
Yeah, and I think that the reason that a lot of the fans are maybe upset about this is because you just look at straight numbers and say, okay, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to guarantee themselves 4 apiece, but then the Big 12 and the ACC at just 2 apiece. But to that, John, I would say the Big 12 had 1 team this past year. So how should those conferences maybe be feeling about this potential automatic qualifier setup?
I think you have to publicly push back against it, but I think privately you have to be willing to take this deal. I mean, if you're the Big 12 and the ACC and you can lock in 2 no matter what each year, I mean, I think that's a great thing. To your point, Emily, if it had been like this, if we expand to say 14 and we had this current format, 4-4-2-2, the beneficiaries would have been the SEC. Alabama would have gotten in, and the other one would have been the Big 12. Iowa State would have gotten in. And the Big 12 is a super fun conference. I think we all enjoy the chaos that comes with it. But, I think it's reasonable to have doubts about how many teams it would annually put into the playoff. It could be 1 plenty of years. So having 2 locked in no matter what, I think is great for them. Again, you want to feel like you're part of the big dogs of the Big Ten and SEC, but realistically you're not. And so having 2 guaranteed, I think, is actually a good thing for the Big 12. Personally, I think in some ways the SEC would benefit from there being no automatic qualifiers. If it's just take the best 14, I think the SEC would put the majority of them in. Big 10, of course, would be there too. But I think the SEC, certainly this past year, top to bottom, was the deepest conference. The Big 10 was dominant, top heavy, but I think the SEC had more. So the SEC could have put more in if it's all, just top 14, top 16 versus automatic qualifiers. So some of this isn't as much the SEC's benefit as some people think it is, but certainly I think Big 12 and ACC could benefit from having 2 no matter what.
Yeah, the ACC and the Big 12 have 0 room to negotiate. Yeah. They should just accept whatever they get because they haven't been putting out a good brand of football. I mean, they've been in the playoffs. I mean, Clemson showed, and it's been Clemson, but SMU got in. That wasn't something for us to even watch for more than a quarter. Mm-hmm. So for the most part, I think we all want to see a Big Ten SEC type of championship game. We just don't want to say it. Mm-hmm. But that's what we want.
Yeah, we want the appearance that everybody has a chance to win it. And, what we get in March Madness, right, is that anybody can win it that year. And so trying to recreate a little bit of that magic. John, I think something that would make people happy is if the SEC finally started to play 9 conference games, which is something that will be discussed and, of course, is all contingent on these automatic qualifiers. If they know that they have 4 spots, they're more apt to move to that 9-game conference schedule that we've seen from the Big Ten since 2016. So what would have to happen for this to happen for the SEC to add 9 games?
Yeah, they're directly linked, Emily. I think the automatic qualifier thing makes it an easier sell to the teams in the SEC because right now, I think there's 2 factors you have to think about. One, multiple teams in the SEC, Bama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, did not feel like they were rewarded last year in the playoff selection based on this difficulty of their schedule. So telling those teams, hey, we're now going to add a 9th hard game to your schedule and nothing's going to change otherwise, just not palatable to a lot of places in the SEC. But I think if you can have 4 guaranteed locked-in spots and you get more money from ESPN, which is another important component to this. That's been a big reason why they haven't gone to 9 in the past, was that ESPN was not willing to offer enough to make it worth their while. From what I've heard, that's changing. I think that's much more likely they'll get a number that they'll feel good about. So you get some more money and you feel like your path to the college football playoff is still there because you're having 4 locked in. And now it's not about I'm comparing my resume against Clemson or SMU. All that matters is I need to be one of the top 4 in the SEC. That's the most important thing. And so that, I think, makes it easier to imagine this happening. I think without the automatic qualifiers, without additional money, I think we'd go to another year of going down Destin, talking about it a lot, and it not passing again. But from the people I've talked to, there's increasing optimism that this could actually happen after years of talking about it.
Yeah, with a 9-game season within the conference, my question is, what happens now to the conference championship game? Mm-hmm. How much emphasis are we putting on actually having a conference champion? Because if we don't do that, as a fan, we're going to lose interest. Mm-hmm. If you have 4 automatic bid teams that goes in, coaches are always trying to find a way to bend those rules. Not break them, but bend them. And whenever I'm in the situation of having the number 1 or number 2 seed locked up already, I'm going to pull my team back and say, you know what? What Philadelphia Eagles did this year of resting their best players, I'm going to do the same. Just to give us a better opportunity to play maybe in a 3-game series to win a national championship. But that's when the conference championship goes out the way, and so does the rivalry games for fans. And now you're stuck again as a fan saying, what are we looking forward to? Is it just the playoffs, or does the regular season truly have any meaning to it?
I think what you have to do is you have to make it worth their while. And so I think, some of the kind of ideas being floated around right now, one of them is almost kind of like the NBA play-in with what we're seeing in the playoff with the NBA. So you might have, in the NBA, it's 7-10 versus 8-9 for those final 2 spots. So if you're the SEC, you could do some combination of 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 in terms of how they finish in the regular season, and have that as kind of a play-in championship weekend. If you want to evolve it, you could do something where you still keep the championship, and then they're getting the bye. They're getting one of those locked in 2 spots. If it moves to 14, the winner of the SEC is getting a bye. The winner of the Big Ten is getting a bye. That's didn't really play out this past year, but I think people believe that's ultimately going to be valuable, especially as you add more and more games to the mix, and the wear and tear of your program can be pretty damaging. So I think that's what you have to do. I think that idea of 1 versus 2 conference championship, if you have 4 locked in, it doesn't seem like that makes a lot of sense unless there's some extra incentive to it. But if again, let's look at this kind of past SEC, Bama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, all bunched up together, having those teams have to play each other in a final kind of championship play-in weekend to get that final spot or 2 in the playoff, I think would be very exciting. I think people would love watching those games. I think it would draw good TV ratings, which of course, all the television partners, including CBS, would be happy of some of those kind of games. I think that is where you create more inventory, more value, and create some excitement that final weekend. But it feels like in some way championship weekend is going to have to change if we go to AQs, because it just won't matter as much otherwise.
Talk about like adding more inventory from a television revenue standpoint. You would be going from 5 games to 13 meaningful games on that championship weekend. But what I'm not hearing in this is who's crowned the champion of the conference then? I mean, do we miss out on the confetti, John? What happens there?
And that's something you have to figure out too. I mean, again, you could still do a traditional 1-2 game if that's important to you, and that's where you feel like there's value in it. To Smoke's point, I think we saw this past year in which SMU talked about, hey, if we just don't play in this game, we're in. The fact that that's already out there, Lane Kiffin has talked about being in the SEC championship a lot. I think he said something along the lines of like, coaches don't really want to play in this game. They'd rather just be able to sit at home and know they're in. So with that already bubbling up, there's a lot of smart people in college sports, especially at these different conference offices. They're already thinking about it. They're talking about it. They're finding ways to make sure that those games, which in the past have been very valuable to the conferences, they make a lot of money and they want to preserve them as best they can. Are they able to do it the way they've done in the past? I'm skeptical, but I think they'll find ways to, again, somehow keep a championship weekend where, whether it's a play-in game, whether it's a traditional game where they're getting a bye, something to make it feel like it's valuable and worthwhile to them. I do think people care about conference champions, but I think that the sport has become so dominated by who's going to be in the playoff or not that I don't know that people care as much about a season which they can say we're SEC champions if it doesn't mean them making the playoff, or if it's not directly related to something in the playoff. That just feels to be a lot of the way the coverage is, a lot of the discussion. It's all about the playoff now. And I think some of these conference championships have lost some value because of that. Same with the bowls.
Yeah, the word I kept hearing was care.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that care are the fans and the alums about what's happening in the product that we're seeing on the field.
Former SEC champion.
Correct. And we wore that with a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Like when I was there at Bama, there was only 23. Yeah, we were 1 of 23. So, yeah, you walk in with your chest up. Like, we just won our conference, the best conference in college football, and we felt good about it. But when you take that away from us, it's like, okay, does the regular season really count that much? And it should. We're watching basketball go through this, and we're creating so many games that the regular season games are becoming more meaningless. And once they become more meaningless, nobody really wants to watch it. We're just sitting around just saying, you know what? Can't wait till the playoff starts. Yeah. There's only 16 teams that's getting in. So what about the rest of us?
That's a great point. And I think I think college basketball is a good way of thinking about this because, I think Tom Izzo talked about it recently. Like in the Big Ten, like, are you the champion if you're the regular season champion? Are you the champion if you win the tournament? I mean, that's always been something that I've even been confused about as someone who's cared about college basketball for a long time. So you could have the regular season SEC champion and you could have champion of championship weekend, the team that wins, or, I mean, there's different ways of looking at it, but you're right. It's getting confusing, I think, for fans. And I think, again, what I come back to all the time with it is that college football has never been more popular. There's so many reasons to love what we're seeing, the games. I think we're getting more big games, which is great. But there are just these decisions that are being made time and time again that fans are not at the forefront of that decision making. It's usually about squeezing a little bit extra money, consolidating amongst certain powers. And I think the fear is that fans are going to get left out. Fans who love buying SEC championship T-shirts, might not have that opportunity. They might not care. They might not be as attached to their team and program without some of those opportunities to be so. And so that to me would be the fear of some of these decisions being made, is that, to your point, Smoke, fans are not what they're thinking about first. That's very rarely what you hear first of, the fans are going to love this. That's usually not what it is.
Wouldn't that be nice if that was something not like, more TV revenue or more games or all of these things? The fans definitely forgotten in that. John, before we let you go, I do want to ask, we've continually talked about conference schedules, automatic qualifiers for conferences, but what about the Notre Dame of it all? What is in the best interest of the Irish in terms of the playoff formats that are being projected right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it worked out so well for them last year that in some ways it proves the blueprint can work without them having to join a conference. They've made a lot of money from it, not having to split their share the way that, conferences do when they get their cut of things. So that was very worthwhile for them. Yeah, I think as long as they have a place in it, and I think if Notre Dame is in top 15, top 12, they're going to make it because they are a national brand and they do have a lot of tradition and people like watching them. So I think where they are right now, they're in a good place. I think they willingly signed up for in the past not being a top 4 team ever, never getting a bye under the previous settings. Maybe it will benefit them if it goes to 16 and there's no buys. It could work out even better for them than what the current 12-team format looks like. So I think Notre Dame's in a really good position. Of course, they're going to want to have their view heard and do as much as they can to have Notre Dame positioned well. But I personally think they're in a really good spot right now.
Yeah, as a fan, as a former player, we always felt like Notre Dame had that easy way of getting in. And there's like, it's everybody else, but Notre Dame just gets in. So I don't think this affects them. They love this. Mm-hmm. Argue all you want, SEC, Big Ten, whoever y'all want to argue with. But the Golden Domers, we're just going to slide right by when nobody's watching and get into the playoffs all the time.
Yeah, it worked all right for them last year. Like you said, John, playing for the national championship and also not having to share any of the revenue with the rest of your conference is certainly a nice thing. John Talty, that was College Football Confidential. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to learn more about just what's happening behind the scenes in this sport, Talty and Armin Katayan wrote the book on the changing times in college sports. So check out The Price, What It Takes to Win in College Football's Era of Chaos. You can find it wherever you get your books these days. So everybody is hoping to get into the college football playoff, and in order to do that, you need the right quarterback, and the transfer portal is a popular place to find it. Take a guy like Cam Ward. He was really an example of 2 transfer portal journeys. Incarnate Word to Washington State, then Washington State to Miami. So we want to know, who is the next Cam Ward? The 2 versions of Cam Ward. So for that, we bring in Richard Johnson, national college football writer for CBS Sports, to help with this fun discussion. And RJ, I'll start with the first version of Cam Ward, and that is somebody who came from a non-power conference program to a power conference program and continued to light it up. So who is one guy that moved around and had a similar trajectory that comes to mind when you think of non-power to power?
I think the thing with Cam Ward that you have to put into perspective is that Cam had everything around him at Miami. Damian Martinez, Xavier Restrepo at wide receiver, great offensive line. He had all those pieces around him in that situation and then was obviously outstanding himself. But I am going to go a little bit off the beaten path here, Emily. First one I have for you is Matthew Sluka. Now, he's not arriving at a power. James Madison is itself not a power, but he is reuniting with head coach Bob Chesney, offensive coordinator Dean Kennedy, who he was with at Holy Cross before all of them moved on. James Madison's quarterback situation is in flux. Alonzo Burnett got hurt in the season finale last year, and he may not even be cleared to go until August. And then James Madison also brought in Camden Coleman, who was much more of a thrower than Sluka. But Sluka rushed for over 3,000 yards at James Madison, and he ran for 250 yards in just 3 games at UNLV, including against Kansas in a game he frankly willed UNLV to the victory. So this guy can scoot, and he's going to be a part of this offense, whether it's as the starting quarterback or a change of pace signal caller who you bring in with a wildcat package or something like that. He's going to be a part of this system. He knows this system. He knows these coaches. And for me, he's an intriguing player because when I look at all the transfer quarterbacks in this last cycle, I don't really see a Cam Ward, a guy who jumps out at me as a guy who was great where he was, prolific where he was, and going to a situation in the power conference that is ready-made for him to supernova smoke.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't see a Cam Ward type of player that can go and just be Superman on a big-time level. But there's some guys out there that they fit the bill, and they have enough within them to, be somewhat of an impact. I'm going to go with my man, Mark Gronkowski. We're talking about our guy, the Jackrabbits. Heisman Trophy winner in the FCS level. That's a Walter Payton Award. 2-time national champion. And when you bring in a veteran like that into your building, what you're getting is a quarterback that's done it. Skins on the wall. Has played in every adverse situation. And has shown everybody that at the end of the day, when you have a veteran guy like that in your building, I'm going to give you a chance to get to 8 wins, get an extension from everybody else. And if everything goes right, he's a win-with quarterback, we can get to 10 and possibly challenge for either conference championship or find a way like Indiana did into the college football playoffs.
Smoke, I love what you say there when you talk about like a win-with guy. I mean, for God's sakes, it's Iowa. All you need is a win-with guy because you know that Iowa, the infrastructure around him, that team is not going to beat themselves. They're going to play great defense. They're going to play excellent special teams. They're going to be good in all 3 phases. So just don't hold us back. And I think a guy like Cade McNamara, for instance, last year, it held them back. And it was difficult for them to use his transfer from Michigan, and it just didn't work out. So maybe Gronowski is the guy. I am also going to look at Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza comes to Indiana from Cal. And Fernando Mendoza threw for 3,000 yards in 11 games last season. This guy can throw the ball. Don't get it twisted. He's going to get Elijah Surratt back, who is a tremendous wide receiver for Indiana this season. I really like Fernando Mendoza slotting into this Indiana offense, pistol-based system. It's a little bit plug and play here, and having a season like Curtis Rourke did last year. Now, I think the running game is going to be a little bit different around him. Obviously, a running game is a quarterback's best friend. With Roman Hemby coming in from Maryland, you don't know how much Hemby's going to be able to give you in the ground game. So it's going to be a little bit different around him. But I like Fernando Mendoza as a big-framed passer and a guy who gives you, frankly, a lot of passion. We all remember the post-game on field. Everybody's rushing the field after they win that game at the end of the season, and he's talking about, this is what college football is about. He's a guy who's a leader, and he's a guy who leads with passion, and he's a guy who can get other people on that team to rally around him.
Richard, perfect fit again, man. When you look at it, it's almost rinse and repeat. You have a guy that comes in, understands how to play college football, plays from the pocket. You don't need to have a mobile guy that sit around and run around all the time. He's running really play action RPO series. So when you put him in that situation with Roman Hemby, and Roman Hemby is a better pass receiver than people give him credit for, and a dynamic player with the ball in his hands, he's fitting in the perfect situation, again, with that system in Indiana of just coming in, rinse and repeat. We're not going to ask you to win many games. We're just going to ask you to be a part of it. And when you're called upon just to win 1 or 2, you just got to make a few plays and get this thing done.
All right, so that was the first version of the Cam Ward transfer, but By the time he was at Washington State, we all knew who Cam Ward was. Everybody wanted a piece of him, and Miami was the school that was able to convince him to not go to the NFL and instead become a Hurricane and transform their offense, going from 43rd, their passing offense, to 3rd in 2024. So we want to know the instant impact guy. RJ, who can come in and flip your offense immediately in the transfer portal?
How about Preston Stone with Northwestern? Now, I don't think Northwestern's finishing 3rd in total offense, but they finished worse than 100th last season. So you literally don't have anywhere to go but up. Smoke was talking about Mark Gronowski, South Dakota State, a few quarterbacks ago. Gronowski hit Griffin Wilde plenty of times at South Dakota State. Preston Stone will hit Griffin Wilde plenty of times at Northwestern. Wilde is an FCS transfer up wide receiver. He's one of the most intriguing FCS transfers in the country. Stone, I think, it got a little squirrely there. He lost a job to Kevin Jennings early in the season, and we really haven't heard much from him all season, but he can chuck the rock, as you're seeing on the screen right there. And I see Griffin Wilde downfield being the recipient of many a deep ball from Preston Stone, who you should not forget about as a transfer quarterback, even though he didn't really play last season.
Yeah, 2023 version of Preston Stone was real good. 24, not so much. But the guy that lit it up was John Mateer, 1,000-yard rusher, 3,000-yard pass from Wazoo, transferring over to Oklahoma with his offensive coordinator, the guy that unlocked him, made him look like one in a million type of player. When you want a dual threat guy, a guy that you can put the ball on the shoulder and say, you go out and win this game. He has that ability to do that. Now he's coming and playing the SEC. Oklahoma needs some things around him, but this is a guy that you don't need many weapons around him in order for him to truly impact the game. And now we're talking about just guys that with perfect fits and impact. My little pocket rocket, Thomas Castellanos. I've been pumping this guy up over and over again, Richard. He is the perfect type of player to go in there and fit with the Gus bus. Gus Malzahn, the offensive coordinator, that wants a dual-threat quarterback. But a lot of people don't give Thomas Castellanos enough credit for being an efficient passer. For a little guy, he can wing it, swing the ball out on the one pass, when I mean get it out of his hands quickly, operate in the RPO world. And when things break down, he's magic with the ball in his hands.
Smoke, I don't have questions about John Mateer's personal ability, but I do have questions about the infrastructure around him on offense. You're turning over that entire wide receiver room. You're losing Nick Anderson, who's your best wide receiver. He's transferred out. You've got a new offensive coordinator who obviously worked with him at Washington State. But the weight of the program right now is on this change in both offensive coordinator and quarterback. They have to succeed. So again, Mateer can play, on that we agree on, but I just have questions about the infrastructure around him and the offense you're dropping him in. But my last quarterback is going to be Miller Moss. Miller Moss getting with Jeff Brom at Louisville, who's a tremendous play caller, and then teaming up with Colin Lacey. Lacey gets hurt in the beginning of the season and then opts out the rest of the regular season, does play in the bowl game, but opts out the rest of the regular season for Louisville. At least you get Lacey back, so you have a tremendous target for Miller Moss. I think there was a lot of problems on that USC offense that were beyond Moss. I think it is true that Moss does press a little bit, puts the ball in bad places, does create turnovers that aren't really there, but at his best, I think Miller Moss, although a little undersized, can fit in this Louisville system and be really, really good pickup for the Cards.
Gotta say, I like the John Mateer comparison for the standpoint of that he shared a quarterback room at Washington State with Cam Ward. So definitely fits the assignment there, but some valid questions. So we do this fun thing on our show, RJ, where we ask people to submit their ultimate burning questions. And we usually take them at the end of the show, but we got one that kind of applied to this one when we're talking about Thomas Castellanos at Florida State. So we're going to go ahead and answer that question. It is very simple. Will Florida State win more than 7 games this season with Thomas Castellanos as their quarterback? We'll start with you, RJ. What do you think?
Win more than 7 games. Let's talk about winning more than 2 before we start winning more than 7.
They're getting kind of greedy.
This Florida State team, we talk about they only won 2 games. It cannot be worse, all right? It just cannot be worse than it was last year. You have to think at some point in time, water is going to find its level. And I think the identity that Thomas Castellanos brings them, it's going to be a physical run-first identity, which they were so poor. You can talk about the fact that they weren't good in the passing game, all that sort of stuff. They got bullied up and down that schedule by just about everybody they played. You got to reassert dominance physically, and I think Castellanos, a QB-centric run game that Lord knows Gus Malzahn will bring that. I mean, they might be running the doggone single wing for all we know. That physical identity for Florida State is going to be key in just getting them back to, as you say, 7 games, finding itself. Like, yeah, I think Florida State can give you 7. They got them with the talent that they have on that roster.
Yeah, RJ, I'm going to back up on this one and say no. I think there's too much. I think what we saw from Florida State last year was, like you said, they physically got beat up on offense and defense. And even though they added some playmakers around them, I just don't believe their defense and their mentality overall as a program is ready to get back into the 7 to 8 win series. Love the quarterback play. I just don't think he has enough around him to be that guy for 7 to 8 wins.
It's crazy that they went undefeated just 2 seasons ago and we're haggling over 7 wins. But that's what happens when, like you said, they only won 2. Richard Johnson, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate the great conversation. You can check out more of his work at cbssports.com. But it is time now for our recruiting spotlight. And for that, we head to the Lone Star State to get a look at 4-star safety Jordan Deck. The Frisco native is one of the top safeties in the 2026 class and has whittled down his long list of offers to a set of top teams with visits to pair with them. Our Tom Loy sat down with Deck. Let's check out that conversation.
Frisco, Texas Lone Star 4-star safety Jordan Deck joins me now, a 6'2", 180-pound, ranked as the number 23 safety in the class of 2026. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me today, Jordan. I appreciate you. You are one of the top players in Texas this cycle. You got nearly 30 offers to your name, and in the end, you know you can only pick one. And I know recently you narrowed your focus down to 6 finalists. You've got 5 of 6 official visits lined up. So let's dive right into it. May 15th, you are headed to UCLA. What has you most excited about the Bruins?
And, Coach Gabe Lynn, he just got there from Colorado. And so, I'm excited to get down there and see what UCLA has in store, and I want to get down there for a spring practice before, my official visit. But, I'm excited to see, just the campus and, people there and get to talk to the players. But I'm excited, me and him built a good relationship, so far these last couple months. So,
And then after that, May 30th, you're headed to Ann Arbor. You're going to visit Michigan. What is it about the Wolverines that has you fired up, man?
Michigan offered me last year before my junior season, and so I've been had a relationship with all the coaches, the whole coaching staff, and so I'm definitely excited to get down there. I feel like it's long overdue, and so just like I said before, I definitely will get down there for a spring practice. Just so I can see how Coach Lamar Morgan. I think he's a great guy. He came down to the school. We got on the board. We talked about the system. And, so what they do at Michigan. And so I'm excited. I think, it's somewhere I can see myself being.
A week later, you're one of Michigan's rivals. On June 6th, you're headed to Penn State, heading to State College. What has the Nittany Lions in the hunt, man?
Man, they got a great winning culture. And so, you can't beat that. They got a great winning culture. And Coach Poindexter, he coaches big safeties like myself. And so, I definitely want to get down there. And like I said, see what's in store. A lot of these schools, I haven't been anywhere outside of Texas. And so getting outside of Texas is really good for me, seeing these schools and stuff like support. But like I said, Penn State, going to the playoffs this year, have success in the playoffs, it's definitely a place that you want to be. And so I want to see, just like I said, the campus and get to know Coach Poindexter and the whole coaching staff.
On June 13th, you are headed to Ole Miss, going to get some time with Lane Kiffin, a big players coach, one of the more popular guys in the country. What excites you most about the Rebels?
One of my big brothers is going there. One of my closest friends, his name is Jalen Braxton. So he goes there, and he's a corner for them. He just transferred in from Arkansas, and so he has good things to say about the program. And he said I can fit the program, and I believe what he said. And so I want to get down there and see what's to it down there at Ole Miss.
And then on June 20th, you got Baylor. You're headed to Waco. What is it about the Bears that has them as a top contender for you?
Coach Hall, Coach Hunt, and Coach Aranda and Ed Parrish, Coach Appleberry, all down there. And all great people. We have a great relationship. We talk on the phone every day, if not every other day. And so those are, fun guys to be around. And I've been to Baylor, I think twice, 3 times now. And so, it's close to home and down there in Waco. And so I made them the last official visit, and I'm excited to get down there again. I know what Baylor has in the store. And so I just do my dues and take a official visit down there.
And your 6th finalist is Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish have been in play for a while. You do not have that official visit date completely locked in right now. What's the latest with the Fighting Irish, and what has you excited about that trip to South Bend?
Hopefully, I can get my date soon, I don't know if Coach is busy up there. He says he'll send me my date, and so hopefully I get one. Notre Dame playing the national championship, Coach Freeman, he looks like he's all about all the right things. And so, that's a place I can see myself being. He looks like he's football the main thing. So it looks like he loves those guys and he coaches them hard. And so, just like the high school I go to, I have really good coaches. And so I feel like Coach Freeman and the coaching staff up there is just like, my high school. And so, I want to see what's to it down there. And so hopefully I can get down there to give my date, So
what are you thinking? Once you take all these trips, what are you thinking regarding a commitment timetable and a final decision?
I definitely want to commit before the next season, the 2025 season, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I can commit before the end of June. That's the plan, end of June. And so it might be tough, but that's what I plan on committing. After I take the low reads, it's going to be decision day. So, hopefully I pick the right one, and whatever one I pick is going to be a blessing. All great schools, and blessed to be in this position to be talking about these schools and being able to go to these schools. And so whatever one I go to, it's a blessing, like I said.
And then with the commitment, when you make your decision, what are some of the important factors when you're talking to your family? What is that school going to need to possess to eventually land a commitment from Jordan Deck?
It's a school that I could possibly come in and play early. And that's the main goal. Is to play football, keep the main thing the main thing. So the place I go to is a place that I want to get in and have a shot to get on the field. Because a lot of people talk about NIL and money, but if you make that money, you don't play, then you're not going to be very happy. And so, the school I want to go to is a place that got a shot to get on the field and great connection with the coaching staff, and I feel I could be developed.
And then lastly, once you pick that school, what can the teammates, what can the fan base, what can they expect from you both as a person but also as a player?
Man, I give this game everything I got. So I'm going to give football everything I got. I'm going to work hard, and, the main thing is to perform. I want to perform at a high level. So I want to prepare at a high level. So I'm going to give it everything I got, especially I'm going to be a great teammate, hopefully can be a leader, a team captain someday. And so that's what, I desire, and that's what I want to give to the program.
Jordan, I appreciate your time. We might just happen to have you back here on Commitment Day. We'll see what happens, but appreciate it as always. Now let's head back to you guys in the studio.
Yes, sir.
I love it. I know fans and coaches are happy to hear that he is ready to go, and these will be his upcoming visits from his final schools. We'll start with UCLA, then take a trip to Michigan. Then in June, he's got Penn State, Ole Miss, Baylor, and then TBD on when he will visit Notre Dame, but definitely one of his schools that he is most interested in. So clearly, when you read that list of schools, this kid is special. What do you see on tape?
Yeah, player that can affect you at all 3 levels. And I mean, at the line of scrimmage as far as blitzing, second level being a dime linebacker and impact the run game. But when you see him in coverage, you see feet, instincts. When I say instincts, he understands how to read and recognize routes and jump them, like you just saw in a couple of the clips. And he has ball skills in order to pick the ball off. So he's one of these modern day safeties that's a positionless. You can't just say he's playing half of the field or middle of the field. He can line up anywhere and be an impact player. And for a young guy, the game is slowing down for him as you see the way he plays. When most of the time when you see young guys play, they're jumping on every single route that's in front of him. Now, he'll see a under go in front, understanding there's a dig coming behind him, or he'll have a vertical route in front of him, and he understands that he's a low hole player, meaning he's a player in the middle of the field. He'll jump that and pick that dig. So he's playing with a little bit more headstrong and a little bit more instincts than a lot of younger guys that's his age.
Yeah, he's got that maturity, and that's something that you can definitely tell when he speaks as well in his conversation with Tom Loy, is that he understands how it works, and you see that maturity in his game as well.
Right.
It's time.
Let's get to
For
it.
the ultimate burning questions. You submitted them on Instagram, and we are here to answer them. Our first one comes from Knox Vernon 17, who is asking, I love this one, would LeBron win the Heisman if he came to college football?
LeBron will win anything. I think LeBron would certainly, easily. It might be, you know what? I would go on deck and say LeBron would probably be the first 3-time winner in terms of Heisman. Oh, yeah,
What position is he playing?
Pick one.
Any?
6'9", 260 pounds. You can say tight end, defensive end, or modern day receiver. Harry Carmichael. And I just went back with my buddy Jim Monis and watched Harry Carmichael. And you see a lot of guys that has the ability to catch the ball, break tackles, be creative, throw the ball up in the air. And one thing that we don't give LeBron a lot of credit for, his mind, his ability to play the game before the game's being played. 3 times.
3-time Heisman
3,
winner.
give it to him.
I love it. Colts Forum asks, a lot of turnover for my Mizzou Tigers. How do they fare in 2025?
I think Mizzou fares well. I mean, you look at the schedule, you line it up at them, and you see they have really 2 tough games, South Carolina and Alabama. You know what, Emily? They're both playing them at home.
That helps.
And then you look in the transfer portal, they replaced Luther Burden with one of my favorite receivers in the transfer portal, Kevin Coleman. He was at Mississippi State last year. Played the slot, played the Z. Creative with the ball in his hands, understands how to run routes, knows how to get open versus man and zone, and he has the ability to take it the distance when he gets the ball in his hands. So Drink's doing a pretty good job of just replacing what he lost and replacing it with as good, not better than Luther,
Yeah, that's hard to
but
beat.
complementary to what he is.
Yeah, Mizzou, the number 6 transfer portal class, also bringing the number 2 player in Damon Wilson from Georgia on the edge. So
Edge
that
rusher that
helps.
can get after the quarterback. They lost a young guy, Williams Veneri, but hey, listen, the portal giveth,
Yep.
the portal taketh away. This time they got some veteran talent to come in and produce for them and get after the quarterback, which they were just okay at last year.
Which is very important in the SEC. Julian Espinoza wants to know, do you think Jeremiah Smith should be the cover athlete of EA 26?
1,000%. When you're the best player in college football, you deserve that. And he is a poster child of college football right now. I know everyone gave me flack about not saying he's not a generational player. That has nothing to do with his ability in being the best football player right now in college on the offensive side, because the best defensive player is also on his team, Caleb Downs. So if they want to split it, I wouldn't have a problem doing that either.
Just sitting like back to back like Charlie's Angels style. That's what I was thinking of asking you, though, is that we had 3 players on it last year, but do you think he's worthy of just being the only player on the cover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you give him that award and walk away from it.
Just what? You're done.
Just walk away. Enough's enough. I think he's the best player in college football on offense. When we know college football cares little about defense.
A little bit. Yeah.
They just want to see points being scored.
That is certainly true. Brad Smith added in the YouTube chat, who's beating LeBron on a 50-50 ball? No.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. 6'9", 40-inch vertical, throw the ball up and you'll get it. I mean, the man's 40 years old right now.
Yeah.
At 18, 19, 20 years old, dominant. Truly dominant. I'm just glad he didn't play football because he'd embarrass a lot of us. And plus, he's smart. He knew where the money is. Basketball.
Yeah, he didn't go to college in terms of playing sports on basketball or football. But yeah, you think he would have been a 3-time Heisman Trophy winner if he did play college football at whatever position he chose to play.
The best basketball
it.
player ever, our best athlete of our modern generation. Yeah, playing against 18, 19-year-old that only about 2% is going to play in the NFL. Yeah, truly dominant. Did in basketball, not even going to college. So what would he have done in college? Rip it apart.
See, these are the fun things that we get to talk about here in the off season, but we could not do it without your questions. So thank you for submitting questions on Instagram. You can find it on the 24/7 Sports Instagram account on the story. You can respond. We've been going through your questions all day, having a good time. So thank you for those burning questions, and thank you for watching us here on the Ultimate College Football Show. Keep it locked in to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel for more great off-season content, and tune in to the show Mondays and Wednesdays at 4 Eastern. Thanks for watching.